model, a renal lobe, and also the renal corpuscle. We'll start out with the whole kidney. You got the adrenal gland up top, but this is adrenal cortex on the outside, and the adrenal medulla in the middle. As you look at the whole kidney model here, you have the renal capsule at the surface. Deep to the renal capsule, basically between my finger and the pen or pencil here, you have a renal cortex. Deep to the renal cortex, you're going to have the renal medulla. Within the renal medulla, you'll see renal pyramids. And each renal pyramid has a tip that we call a renal papilla. So we got renal papilla. Separating those renal pyramids would be extensions of the cortex called renal columns. You got a space here in the center. If all these vessels and other structures were removed, called the renal sinus. There's adipose tissue in the renal sinus. Minor calyces. Calyx is singular, but minor calyces. They'll merge to give you a major calyx up underneath the vein here. Major calyx in this area here. Major calyx in that area as well. This area here is the renal pelvis. Here, dropping a line between the, rather from top to bottom where the pen is, this would be the renal hilum. Over here, this is your ureter. You got a renal artery, the renal vein, segmental artery, segmental vein. You can move into the columns and see a very thin interlobar artery along with the interlobar vein. At this point, we'll transition over and start to look at the renal lobe model in the middle. Here, once again, will be the renal capsule. The space that I'm moving between will be the renal cortex. You have a renal pyramid, renal papilla, minor calyx, which has been cut, and renal columns on either side. Here would be your interlobar artery. There's your interlobar vein, interlobar artery and vein on the opposite side. Here's the arcuate artery in red. The arcuate vein runs with it. Cortical radiate artery, cortical radiate vein. Afferent arteriole coming off the cortical radiate artery. Glomerulus tucked inside of the renal corpuscle. Efferent arteriole here, allowing the remaining blood to exit the nephron. Peritubular capillary. This would also be an example of a peritubular capillary as well. Here would be another. Remember the capillary network that extends deep into the medulla, vasa recta. We got a collecting duct, papillary duct. You would call the yellow circle here maybe a renal corpuscle, or you could put glomerular capsule. So renal corpuscle or glomerular capsule for these. Two different types of nephrons. This would be a juxtamedullary nephron. This would be a cortical nephron. We'll run through each component. Here's a proximal convoluted tubule of the juxtamedullary nephron. Descending nephron loop. Ascending nephron loop on the opposite side. Distal convoluted tubule. We come over to the cortical nephron. We got a proximal convoluted tubule. Descending nephron loop, ascending nephron loop, and then distal convoluted tubule of the cortical nephron. All right. Taking a look here at the renal corpuscle model. Got an afferent arteriole. Notice that wall is thicker than the efferent arteriole. The E for efferent here, once again, E. Cutaway in the afferent arteriole reveals JG cells, juxtaglomerular cells. We got our glomerulus here. Remember at the back, where there is no paint, this would be the glomerulus in its uncovered state. But the peach-colored paint at the front, this would represent podocytes making up that visceral layer of the glomerular capsule. Here's the parietal layer of the glomerular capsule made up of simple squamous epithelium. The space is called the capsular space. We've got little finger-like projections. These are pedicles. The red line, once again, represents filtration slits. The cells, represented by the peach paint, are podocytes covering the glomerulus. And those podocytes make up the visceral layer of the glomerular capsule. We got our ascending nephron loop here with its macula densa cells. And then we got a proximal convoluted tubule down here at the bottom.